spray without getting a lot of overspray. You'll see my paint gun's really covered in paint right now because I do a lot of work. People think, oh, you don't clean your tools. It's like, hey, you know what? I'll clean it when I rebuild it. So that's how I usually do it. But let me talk to you about, first of all, the setup to not have overspray when you paint. So a lot of people, they think that you have to use a reversa tip, and reversa tips cause overspray. And if you say that it doesn't, I can absolutely prove you wrong. If you go through 50, 60 gallons, I'll go through 40, I'll have just as much stuff covered, 50 gallons. I mean, it makes a big difference. You lose a lot of paint. You're painting the ground, you're painting the dust you make is just tons of overspray. This house was in really bad shape, and it's spray-on stucco, so it doesn't gonna look solidly covered when you paint it. Well, let me talk to you guys first about how you do this. Number one, you use a flat tip. Number two, this is a cone filter head. It's hard to tell what it looks like, but you need to look up one of these online. You need a cone filter. Inside, underneath this cap, is a cone filter and a flat tip. So you need to get rid of your original reversa tip, because what they do is when you spray, let's do an example here, you'll see on the ends two heavy fingers on each end, and when you spray, that area swirls around and you're losing paint, and you're wasting money, and also making overspray. You're having to cover twice as much. So let me talk to you guys about technique. So that's setup. You need to have this setup, okay? So when you spray, when you set up your gun, you pull your trigger. If you see paint coming back at you, your pressure's too low. If you see lines through your pattern, that's called fingers. The heavy fingers on the end are not actually called fingers. This tip's a little bit used, so you'll see that the pattern starts out narrow, goes wide, and comes back narrow. So this tip's kind of blown out. A brand new tip will have a very small finger here and a very small finger there. After you run a few gallons through it, that's when you have you'll start to get rid of that finger. But don't worry about that little finger on the edge, but look at the ones through the middle and make sure that they're set up right, so that you don't have, your pressure's just right. The other thing is, you'll see guys, and they'll spray like this. Watch my wrist. Wrong. That is not how you spray. Okay? That is not the way to spray, because now you've covered these angles, and you haven't covered through the middle. So that's the wrong way to spray. You should have your gun 100% perpendicular to the wall. It should not break like this or like this, because when it breaks like that, what happens is your overspray hits the wall and bounces and goes this way. And where does it go? All over stuff. Okay? The other thing is, do not use a spray pole unless you have to, because when you use a spray pole, you get 50% more overspray than you do with a handgun. Professional who's been doing this for years knows this, if he's ever learned anything in his life. But some guys just haven't. They've been doing this for years and they never learn. So let me show you guys the technique in the spray. You spray like this. If you're worried about something being covered, you can cross spray this way, but you have to put on a lighter coat, and never break your wrist this way or this way. You spray 100% perpendicular to the wall. So if you have everything set up, you shouldn't need to be covering everything, because your spray is going to go straight from the spray gun to the wall. It's not going to come back at you. It doesn't bounce. When you go like this at an angle, that's when it bounces, and it's like playing pool. You're hitting stuff over here way over there when you're spraying and you're angling. So you keep your spray gun straight to the wall. So if you'd use this technique, you'll save money in paint. You'll save labor cost in having to cover every living thing. Right now there's no paint on these bushes. I just got done spraying right here. There isn't any paint. That's not paint. There's nothing on the bush. Nothing. Okay, and I just got done spraying right over it. So you don't have to cover all that stuff that you're covering if you use this technique and you learn how to do it and you master it. So anyway, that's just a little heads up on how to spray without getting overspray.